Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about Batman Returns today. Now, Batman Returns is a movie that I had zero expectations for. Okay, when I first saw it, I was just like, "Oh, they made another one." I didn't even know that movie existed. Honestly, like I wasn't really like keeping track of when movies were coming out because I was so young. The film came out in 1992. I was literally just like, "Oh, I didn't know they made another one. Let's watch it." And I loved it. I loved it so much. But it didn't hit me exactly how much I loved it until much later. Funnily enough, because I didn't. I mean, I didn't see the movie in like 1992. I saw it. I think I saw it briefly, like a few years later. And by that point, I was already excited about Batman Forever. Okay, so that was like my enjoyment of Batman Returns got kind of like interrupted by Batman Forever, and then I kind of got over that one, and then went back to Batman Returns later in life, and I was like, wow, I love this movie like way more than I thought I did, and now. I said in the Batman review, which the 1989 Batman, which I reviewed before, I don't know if I love this movie more than the first one. I might actually do. I don't know. This movie is a very different movie than the first one. Okay, Batman Returns really is where Tim Burton said, you know what? We had this film noir kind of like 1930s kind of thing going on in the first movie, like a kind of Dick Tracy kind of vibe. For this movie, let's just go, full Tim Burton with it, let's just have the snow, let's have the Christmas kind of the Christmas setting, let's have more villains, let's have more weird stuff, just flat out more weird shit. Okay, and this is a weird movie. Like, this is a weird movie, and it was really weird for people when it came out. Too weird, in fact. This movie kind of alienated a few people. Fans of the original movie flocked to this second movie, and I feel like the people who saw the movie were a little bit more divided on it than the first movie. I think pretty much everybody loved the first 1989 movie, and then this movie came out. Studios didn't really know what to make of it. They couldn't sell like Happy Meals, the disturbing penguin from the movie. They couldn't really do that. They couldn't really do that with like a Catwoman like covered in blood and shit. So yeah, it was harder for studios to really kind of sell this one to everyone. But this is where Tim Burton kind of embraced the kind of hammer horror feel of it all, Like, this is a monster movie, and I think Tim Burton really approaches these Batman movies, like they are horror movies or monster movies, And here we have more villains than in the first movie, which just had the Joker. In this one, you have anti-hero Catwoman, who is a villain for the majority of the film. You've got the Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, and you've got Max Schreck, a shrewd businessman who helps out the Penguin, played by Christopher Walken. I remember reading people were just annoyed that there were so many villains in this movie. But you know what? Like, few movies are as good at managing villains that this movie is. This movie does it effortlessly. I never felt watching this movie for 1 second that there were too many villains in this movie. It doesn't feel like Spider-Man 3, for example, where it's just like you got Venom over here, you got the Sandman over here, you've got Goblin Jr. for whatever reason. You've got Peter Parker himself is a freaking villain. That movie felt bloated. This movie really doesn't. And my favorite part of the movie is the opening of the movie. The way that the lights kind of come down. You've got the logo, you got the Batman logo, the Warner Brothers logo, and it's like dun 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 dun, and then you kind of descend onto the Penguin's world. Like, this movie is interesting because it starts you off with the introduction of the villain, and the introduction is so good. Like, it really is like really gothic. Like, you've got this kind of like the Cobblepot mansion, which is framed like Citizen Kane, and then you go into this mansion, and you've got Pee Wee freaking Herman and Simone from the Pee Wee movie, who are the parents. It's already weird as hell. Okay, it's already weird as hell. They are the parents of a penguin child who was born, who's in a cage, who eats a cat, which is genius because it's a foreshadowing of him fighting with Catwoman later on. Yeah, and then he's an abandoned child, and the score by Danny Elfman. I love this score more than I do the score that he did for the first movie. Danny Elfman's score for this movie is freaking incredible. And it's not just because, he has to create a theme for Batman that's really good. He does he does add a few things to the theme from the first movie, fleshes it out a little bit more. But then you've got the Penguin's theme, and you've got Catwoman's theme as well. There's no theme really for Max Schreck, but he's kind of linked to the Penguin in X-Ray, so it doesn't matter. But the main players of this, they have their own themes, and they are very different, but they all fit into the same melody, And it's the way that the themes pop up and the way that they match the characters exactly is just fantastic. Especially like reading how Danny Elfman came up with this score is just like, it felt like he just did it very quickly, kind of like it just kind of clicked in his mind what he wanted to do, when he was on the plane someday, and he was just like, all right, here's what we're doing for that. And then I feel like he composed it really quickly as well, and it just doesn't feel like that. It feels like this is an epic operatic score, and there is an operatic feel to this movie. This movie, although like the sets feel a little claustrophobic at times, like you don't really get to see a lot of the city in this movie. I felt like the first Batman movie felt somehow it breathed a little bit better. Like you went outside of the city here and there, to go into the Batcave and stuff. In this movie, you feel a little bit claustrophobic. You're stuck in this metropolis, and it is a little bit stuffy. There's something stuffy about it, but that's only because they just had one big set that they were filming everything in. But at the same time, it does feel grand. It feels like you're at the opera and you're seeing these larger than life characters next to this Christmas tree and this kind of plaza. They're just kind of like interacting with each other. And Batman is awesome in this movie. Michael Keaton freaking nails it once again. He's got kind of a romance going on with Selena Kyle / Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer. You know what? Like this movie, I think got Razzie nominations for like Danny DeVito. But this movie really like, if people were honest with this movie, they would have given like Danny Elfman. Yeah, they would have given Danny Elfman a freaking award. But they would have given like Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer like Oscar nominations. They are just so freaking good in this movie, both of them. They're just incredible. They're just like the best. Somehow Tim Burton managed to only give us like, I would argue, the best Joker, but he also managed to give us like by far the best Penguin and the best Catwoman to date. We still haven't managed to match how good the Penguin was in this movie and how good Catwoman was in this movie. It's just like unparalleled. Even the comics have struggled to make a Catwoman and a Penguin as good as they were in this movie. The kind of disgusting, kind of slimy aspect of Penguin just fits so well. Danny DeVito is just, the makeup on Danny DeVito is mad. Like, you imagine that Danny DeVito was quite old when he played this role, but he really wasn't. Like, he didn't look like that at all. And he still doesn't, like, to be fair to him. Come on. But, like, you would picture him now playing the Penguin and just not needing as much makeup, But, like, back in the day, he really didn't look that old, but they made him look old and all like white, and he's got like the nose and the little kind of shiny black gloves. He is a larger than life creature, and he is kind of a shocking character. Just like he is so coarse and so vulgar and so filled with hate, So it's interesting to me that Bruce Wayne, the first time he kind of approaches the Penguin, sees him on television, hears his story, he doesn't see him as a freak at all. He's just kind of like, I hope he finds his parents, and because initially that's what Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, claims that he wants to find. It's just he wants a chance to come out of the sewers where he's been living and find his parents. And Batman is moved by that because he can kind of see himself a little bit in this creature there. And again, this is a hint that these are not just three villains that you get in this movie. You get three different aspects of Bruce Wayne's personality, okay, of this Batman character's personality. Like I said in the other video, you've got the vigilante, twisted vigilante with a lot of trauma to deal with. That's Catwoman, right? And that's the Batman side of him. You've got the monster the kind of the hate-filled monster, the dark side of the Batman. The Penguin is the embodiment of what the Batman would become if he didn't have any restraint, if he just let himself be driven by hate and his instincts. He would become the Penguin. This is the kind of dark mirror of Batman, if you will. And then Christopher Walken is the kind of dark mirror of Bruce Wayne, what Bruce Wayne could be with all this wealth, and influence. He could be this just kind of like slimy guy who just like literally sucks power from Gotham, but he's not. This is a very interesting kind of thing that the movie does, where it kind of uses the other characters to kind of make us understand this main character. And I really feel like the reviews, not just at the time, but like since then, there's been some reviews where it's just like, well, we spent too much time with the villains, not enough time with Batman. Batman is overwhelmed by the villains, but you need to understand the villains to understand Batman in this movie. That's what this movie aims to do, and a lot of people didn't get that straight away, and I think that's a shame, because it's a very clever movie, really. It's a very clever movie, very smart movie that just happens to have rocket-powered penguins in it. Well, no, suicide bomber rocket penguins, all right? And the Penguin Man in the giant rubber duck. I like the penguin's lair. It's like the sewers connected to this kind of abandoned zoo. Like the kind of polar bear side of it. And there's no polar bears, but there's tons of penguins. There just happens to be tons of penguins left over from when that zoo closed down. I just love the humor of this movie. This movie has a different sense of humor than the first movie. This movie is a lot more vulgar and a lot naughtier. There's something very naughty about this movie. There's like a weird, like, there's a lot of lust in this movie, okay? The Penguin lusts after Catwoman. Catwoman and Batman have this kind of hot relationship going on. And the Penguin really thinks he has a shot with Catwoman as well. The dualism of these vigilantes, right? He knows that Selena Kyle is a good person. He knows that she's not a monster, she's not a murderer, but, he also knows that she has some problems, and she is doing some bad stuff in this movie. But Catwoman's an interesting character, really. Like, it's really cool to have an anti-hero like Catwoman in this movie, because in the first movie, you really have just the good guys and the bad guys, right? That's all you get. In this movie, you have a little bit of in between. You've got some gray areas as well, and I really love that this movie explores that, especially with the Penguin as well. The Penguin is a tragic figure. He's monstrous. He's an evil character, but by the end you feel bad. Like, the movie makes you feel bad for him by the end, because you're like, you know what? It really wasn't his fault. His parents sucked. He lived in the sewer all his life, and when he came out of the sewer, he was kind of accepted by Gotham, but then he was so quickly just like, thrown out like a piece of shit back into the sewers that, I don't know, you feel for him, even though he's a mass murdering bastard. Because the Penguin's plan is not, first of all, is to become the mayor of Gotham in this movie. So there's this kind of satire of politicians in this movie. But it's not just that. Like, once that plan fails, he turns to his plan B, which you realize was really his plan A, which was to kill like every like firstborn children of Gotham. I just love that the Penguin has this insane plan all worked out beforehand. Like, his plan is just to come out of the sewers and kill all the children. And it's so messed up. And this is a Christmas movie, by the way. I love the contrast between that as well. It's just like so scary. It just makes that character so scary at one point, where you realize what his actual plan is. And it's even scarier in retrospect, because when the movie is going on, you think, oh, maybe that's his plan B, because he thought, you know what? I'm going to try and get along with these people, and then we'll see. And then he got pissed off when it backfired, but not really, because he was plotting this during the mayoral race, so you know that he was plotting this anyway. So, God, it's a scary thought, this character, But again, you still feel bad at the end. That's how good this movie is. Like, you still feel bad when he dies at the end. Spoilers. And Christopher Walken's epic. Like, he really is just slimy as well. Slimy as hell. And he is so good. Christopher Walken just has a great time in this movie. Just manipulating the Penguin. Like he's also a very good politician, just like manipulating this penguin to the point where he thinks he actually has a shot at becoming the mayor, and he sort of did, until Batman kind of did a little bit of a DJ move on him using a recording. And yeah, okay, so there's a little bit of controversy with Batman killing this one member of the circus gang, of the circus gang that works with the penguin. There's one guy that he straps like a bomb to him and like pushes him in a hole, and the bomb blows up, and he sets a dude on fire as well. Which is messed up and a little bit unnecessary, I feel. But you know what? It made for a cool visual because that guy was dressed like a devil and he's on fire. It's hilarious. It's just funny. It's like very sadistic and so not what Batman would actually do. But you know what? Fuck it. It worked for me. It worked for me. This is a cruel movie, and this movie was called kind of mean-spirited. And I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's really unfair. I think some of the humor is a little mean-spirited, The irony of some of the deaths in this movie is funny, but in a very, very dark way. I like the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. I think that was really well done. I love Selina Kyle in this movie and Catwoman. Yeah, I mean, this movie does everything that the first movie did right. It does it again very right, but in a different way. It's a different style. Even the visuals are very different. This is kind of you got a different kind of color palette to play here. It's slightly brighter, but it's slightly whiter, slightly grayer. This movie's grayer, First movie is very black and white. This movie's grayer. There's just something. There's a different style to it. It's more of a German expressionist style that we're going with here, and there's some really beautiful shots in this movie as well. I love the confidence that Tim Burton has in this movie, and it makes it feel so tragic that he didn't get to the next movie, unfortunately, because we were going to see Billy D. Williams as Two-Face with Marlon Wayans as Robin as well. That would have been really cool. I can't help but wish I knew exactly what he had planned for that movie, because, man, that would have been... I wish there was a script out there. Maybe there is. I don't know. But I wish there was an actual script out there of what Tim Burton had planned for this next movie, because I was down with it. After this movie and the first movie, I was ready for the next one. But you know what? We got Batman Forever, which was fun anyway. Then it went downhill, obviously. What are you going to do? Yeah, so I love pretty much everything about this movie. Honestly, like the only thing that doesn't really stand the test of time is a couple of the effects here and there. Like you've got like the penguins, for example, when they drag the penguin to his watery grave at the end, is it doesn't look real at all. Like, it looks fake as shit. Like the penguins, some of the penguins I feel are real penguins, and some are dudes in penguin outfits, which just doesn't work that well. It looks a little bit too goofy at this point, right? The costumes have not aged that well. But for the most part, this is a gorgeous looking movie. Amazing, incredible score by Danny Elfman. Michael Keaton, the cast is so good. I love this cast even more than I do the cast for the first film, Like, as much as I liked, Robert Wuhl and Kim Basinger, I love Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer even more, and Christopher Walken. There's just something about this movie that really appeals to me. The kind of monster movie feel of it, the kind of theatrical feel of it, just the dark gloominess and playfulness of it. It just, I just love this movie. Like, it didn't just copy the first movie. It just did its own thing, and it really, really appeals to me to this day. Again, it's very hard for me to know which movie I prefer, this one or the one before, but man, I could talk about this movie for hours. All I can say is, if you've never seen Batman Returns, check it out. Go check out Batman Returns. Have an open mind. See it as a different thing than the first Batman movie, okay? Just think of it as picture it as if it was almost a silent movie. It's got this kind of vibe where I could totally imagine this movie being a silent movie. The characters are so expressive. The images are so striking. And it's just a very simple story, but told in a very kind of bombastic way. I love it. Like, the humor is hilarious in this. This is a much funnier movie than the first movie, and that had the Joker. But yeah, no, very, very good movie by Tim Burton. I wish there had been a third one, but what can you do? Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to talk about Batman Forever next, so that's going to be a different kind of review, but here we go.